Sixers win it! Wow!
Oh, man, Embiid just posterized Russell Westbrook.
You love the Philadelphia Eagles! Let me get a hell yeah!
What is up, everybody? Welcome, Eagles fam. Today, we are talking Eagles football, and we got a great show today. Bringing you, I've got Mark Schofield. He is the writer for Touchdown Wire. He does pods for Pat's Pulpit and BGN Radio. Legit one of the best breakdown channels on YouTube. You can subscribe, follow everything down below in that description. And guys, before we get started, always be sure to share the love. You know, smash that like button, subscribe, all that stuff. Mark, what's up, man?
What's going on, buddy? How you been, man? It's been a while.
Yeah, man. We were just reminiscing the last time we were talking NFL draft, and the Yoda balloon is still alive.
The Yoda balloon is still here. It's a bit saggy. I was telling Crockpot before the show, like, look, I got to give up the ghost at some point. It's almost a year old. Like, I got it for my birthday in January. So I really need to give this up. You know, you can see the Yodas over my shoulder here, right there. I can never quite do that, right? But there it is. It's around there. I've got other Yodas, but I can't give up this one. It's just hard.
I'm half tempted to go in my closet and get my Yoda ears, and we'll just be,
we'll do that for next time. We'll get decked out for it.
All right, guys, today we are talking Eagles football. We're going to recap some of the preseason, but we got to start. I got Mark Schofield on here. We got to talk Jalen Hurts. We got to talk Jalen. He only played a few snaps the first preseason game. Overall, he looked very good during the joint practices and training camp. Dude, Mark, what are your overall thoughts on what you've seen from Jalen Hurts and what you have heard during preseason, man? What's your
let's start with what I've heard, because I've heard very positive reviews, Michael Kay and, other, Eagles beat writers that have been there, some Patriots beat writers that saw that joint week of practices leading up to that second preseason game. There are a lot of people that said, look, the Eagles were the better team during that week of practices. And so I've heard very positive, almost glowing reviews about how Hurts has looked during practice. We only did see, like you said, minimal action from him this preseason, but I was impressed with what I saw on the field. You watch that, the snaps that he had against the Steelers. There was one play that he had, and I talked about this on the QB Factory that I do with Ray Shelpervet, who's incredible. We broke down a throw that he had against the Cowboys in Week 16 last year on that sort of flood sale concept with the vertical route, the deep out route, and the back to the flat, where he read it right, but the throw was a little bit late. And while he still completed it, it could have been done so much better. But then he had that same route concept against the Eagles, that deep out route, and he threw it on time, in rhythm, with anticipation and placement. And the fact that it was on time, in rhythm, ahead of the break from the tight end, it went for a big gain. And so that's the kind of stuff that I'm looking for. Like, I know we're going to talk about, you're going to ask me, what are your expectations? What do you need to see from them? That's what I want to see. 20 touchdown passes, 30 touchdown passes, less than 10 interceptions. Yeah, I mean, we can get into numbers and stuff, but that right there is the stuff that I want to see from him. I want to see the mind, the eyes, the feet, and the release. Like, I want to see that all tied together. I want to see the footwork and the drops all synced up. I want to see anticipation throws, because those are the moments where, to me, as somebody that studies quarterbacks, that's the proverbial, the game's slowing down for him, right? You always hear that phrase, Sunday afternoon, you're watching the game, Mark Schlereth or somebody's up in the booth, the game's slowing down for him. That's what it looks like. When that ball comes out before the break, that's the game slowing down for a young quarterback. And so what I've seen has been good.
Let's roll on. What are some of the major positives that Jalen Hurts has shown you this training camp, this preseason?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that sort of improved decision-making, that sort of ability to be ahead of the snap in terms of, being ahead of the play, being ahead of the route concept, being able to read rotations and coverages, which, we saw limited looks at it, but, we did see it against the Pittsburgh Steelers. We did hear some of that stuff, when you're throwing against the Patriots secondary and joint practices, and they're doing different looks at 7-on-7 in team stuff, and they're rotating and spinning the safeties, and you're able to stay ahead of that with your mind. That's huge, because, to get that quarterback leap from, say, year 1 to year 2, year 2 to year 3, most of it happens between the ears. Like, for some, they need to learn Like Josh Allen, for example, needs to learn how to like throw with touch. That's one of the things he needed to learn. That's something that Trey Lance is going to have to learn. But for a lot of quarterbacks, it's really what happens between the ears. Like, can you sort of break defenses down with your mind, manipulate defenders with your eyes, make the right decisions that you need to on a given play? And so far, I've been impressed with that. Now, we'll see come week one. Like, okay, is it happening for real? But from what I've seen and what I've heard, that's it. That's been the big improvement.
Yeah, I fully agree with that, man. You look at, what Jalen Hurts has shown you this preseason, this training camp, is staying cool and calm in the pocket. Too many times we saw Jalen just roll out, don't go through his progressions, and makes that risky play. I like that I've seen him kind of stay cool and calm in the pocket. You did a great breakdown on Daniel Jones a few days ago, that 3rd and goal where he just, was under pressure and he made just a bad decision with the football and it led to an interception. He had somewhat similar play, not 3rd and goal, of course, but he threw the ball away, unlike Carson Wentz. Sorry, but he definitely played way too much hero ball, and try to make that. I want to see Jalen Hurts read his progressions, look cool, just as he is out of the pocket when he's amazing inside that pocket. Let's roll on to some areas of improvement that Jalen Hurts needs to work on, really to take his game to the next level. Before we start talking about franchise quarterback and stuff, what does Jalen Hurts need to work on?
Yeah, and we can start with what you were just talking about, right? Sometimes it's hard when you are a quarterback that gets a full ride to Alabama, that then goes to Oklahoma, and you're a Heisman finalist. When you're an NFL quarterback, like you've been until this point, usually one of the best people on the field, right? And so you've been able to get away with those hero ball moments. That's not going to work on Sundays. That's not going to work on Monday nights. Like the stuff you could get away with on Friday nights and Saturday afternoons, even in the SEC or the Big 12, that's not going to fly in the NFL. And so you mentioned that Daniel Jones play, when they went up against the New England Patriots, it's 3rd and goal at the 1. If it's not there, like you can throw it away. Another great example, I did a similar video on Jordan Love, and he had a play against the Bills from this past weekend where it's 1st and 10 at the plus 21. So you're just outside the red zone. It's a 7-0 game. You're down by 1 score, and it's early in the second quarter. And I know it's preseason. It's a little different, but he had this play on 1st and 10 where he comes out of this under center, gets a snap, tries to pivot and roll out, trips over the guard, starts stumbling, got a guy in his face, and he just lofts a throw to the end zone in the direction of like a triple covered defender. Like, don't do that. Like this game is hard enough to play quarterback. Like, you don't make it hard on yourself. And that goes for many young quarterbacks, and I'd put Jalen Hurts in that category. You have to just accept that there might be a play where you're just going to throw it away. You're just going to eat a sack. You're just going to like give up. Like I know that for competitive athletes, that flies in the face of everything you've taught, everything you've lived, everything you've breathed, the idea that you might like surrender on a given play. But sometimes it's better to do that than to force a throw, to throw an interception, to put your defense in a bad situation, trying to defend a short field. And so that, like you said, is an area that he certainly has to improve upon. Like the decision-making and all the stuff we already talked about, like those are signs that look to be trending in the right direction, and that stuff will still always need to work on. Every quarterback needs to work on that. But Hurts, like many young quarterbacks, that sort of decision-making and learning to throw it away and learning to play for the next drive, that's something that I'm going to be watching for.
I got to throw you this question because it's something that I think about all the time. It's also something that is like just actually a little exciting about Eagles football this year is Nick Sirianni's offense and his scheme. Nobody knows what this guy's going to go, like at least from like the fans watching, because we're not there watching the joint practices. We're not there on the sideline. I know it's all been vanilla during the preseason. Do you have any idea what Nick Sirianni's offense is going to look like a little less 12 personnel, a little more 21 personnel? Like, where are we going? More RPOs? Like, do you have any resemblance of what we're going to see?
It's hard. It's funny. I study all these preseason games and I see all these teams, and so many teams are running like the same, like 7 plays. Like they're running mesh with the crossers underneath. They're running 4 verticals out of either 2x2 with 2 verts to each side, a 3x1 where that number 3 guy works from right to left or left to right across the field. They're running hitch C with the hitches on the outside, the seams in the slot. They're running flood. They're running post over. Like they're all running like the same core, like 8 plays. And so, the idea, like the days of like there being a pure West Coast offense or a pure air raid offense, those are gone. Like every team was running mesh. Every team's running 4 verts. Every team's running flood or Yankee or post over. Like I'm seeing all these teams run the same plays. But what's interesting with Sirianni, you are seeing a lot of multiple level reads. Like I think that's going to be his sort of core philosophy, which I think a lot of offensive coaches should be doing anyway, right? That ability to stretch a defense shallow, intermediate, and deep. You're seeing that on mesh sit where you've got a vert as well over the top of that. The touchdown pass to Scott out of the backfield, that was mesh sit with a running back wheel from last weekend. When you're looking at that sail concept I talked about, another 3-level read with the vertical, the deep out, run it back into the flat. So the quarterback's just reading one area of the field, right? Your eyes are middle on mesh, for example, where you've got the sit, the post, or whatever. On that flood, that sail, vertical, out, flat, your eyes are to one area of the field, whether it's the sideline or the middle of the field, but you're still stretching the defense at 3 levels. And then you've got the opportunity, if the quarterback doesn't like that look, backside route or something like that. And so I think what we're seeing from Sirianni sort of conceptually is that ability for a quarterback to just read one area of the field, which I think is smart, but still stretch the defense at multiple levels. So I think that's one component to it. I do think, they're working, like you mentioned, some 2 running back looks into things. I think a lot of teams are going to try to move in that direction. We saw last year teams like the New England Patriots, the Minnesota Vikings, the San Francisco 49ers, using a lot of 2 running back formations because, again, it's that ability to force defenses to play out of base and then get guys like Scott, like Sanders, matchups against linebackers in the passing game. So I think those multiple level reads to one side of the field, as well as that 2 running back stuff, I think that's a lot of what we'll see once games start going for real.
Coyle says, are we going to be able to give Hurts enough time to be able to stretch the field? He had 2.3 seconds in the pocket, like literally among the worst in the NFL when he was a starter. This team is healthy. This team, I don't even know what that means going into the regular season.
Yeah, I mean,
what's going on, Mark?
Fingers crossed that this offensive line sort of stays healthy. I mean, time to throw. It's such a weird stat because last year, time to release, like Hurts, it was a bit different, right? He was holding on to the ball a while. He was running around back there. He's one of the slowest in the league last year. Now this year it's a little bit different. Like I think on paper, they're going to be able to protect him. And the one thing about Hurts is we know that he can extend and create with his legs. He has the ability to sort of stay alive in the pocket. He has play strength to stay alive in the pocket. And so, I think he'll be able to take care of himself if and when protection breaks down. But that's the other thing. Like a lot of the ability of a quarterback to stay upright in the pocket starts before the snap. And again, it gets back to that between the ears. We all saw that video of Justin Fields getting ear hold, right, against the Buffalo Bills because they couldn't sort out pre-snap protection. It was a base blitz look. Like I did a video on it. Others did videos on it. Ted Wynn did stuff on it. Nate Tice and Jeff Schwartz. But empty protection scheme, you've got a clear blitzer and a guy capping that receiver. Like you've got to know to slide the protection. The poor right guard of that play was actually pointing to the blitz. Credit to him. Hurts has to be able to do stuff like that. Like you've got to be able to make sure your protection is in place before the ball is snapped. Now, having a veteran center in Kelsey is a huge part of that because in many offensive systems, including Sirianni, including the Eagles, like the center is heavily involved in offensive protection, pass protection, play calls. And so having Kelsey will help because half the battle is, okay, we've got 4 coming over here, but we're sliding to the other way. Let's at least flip the slide so we can get 4-on-4 to one side and big on the other. And so having Kelsey, I think, is going to be a huge part of protecting Jalen Hurts this year.
Marky Mark says, when the O-line is healthy, the Eagles have a top 3.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, it's a very good offensive line on paper. And relying, like he says here, on tight ends and running backs, that's huge too. Chipping, making sure backs are involved and aware of their scans, their dual reads, because sometimes it's a protection. You got to have the back that's looking from Mike to Will or Mike to nickel or slot or star, so they know that, look, that you've got a dual read on this play, right? You're not just reading the mic, and if the mic drops, you're free. You got to then check outside. So getting the tight ends involved, the running backs involved, and on the same page is certainly going to help. I've been excited about the young wide receivers, to Mark's point there. Devonta Smith has looked good. Of course, Watkins, obviously the speed showed up early in this preseason. And so I'm excited about the young receivers that they have in place. I think Devonta Smith, that Patriots game, look, he was screwing Juwan Williams into the turf on a number of different snaps. And so the potential is there for this to be a better offense, I think, than people expect. But, of course, a lot of it comes back to Hurts and whether he takes that step forward.
And just to piggyback off of that, like Eagles rely on tight ends. That's one thing that Jalen Hurts truly struggled with, that intermediate area of the field last season. And all you've heard, in the very few snaps that he had in that Steelers game, Jalen Hurts and the tight ends, they have been really focused on that in training camp and going forward. Shane Haff has a question for you, man. My man, do you think Nick Sirianni will utilize a lot of pony packages with Miles Sanders and Boston Scott?
Yeah, Shane, appreciate the question, buddy. Appreciate the shout outs on social media and stuff. It's that 2 running back pony package that we were just talking about. It gets you with 2 guys in Sanders and Scott that are true receiving threats as running backs, both out of the backfield and even flexed out to the wide. Like, I always try to do this exercise where you put yourself in the mind of the defensive coordinator. If you see that, if you see a 20 personnel package or 21 personnel package where you've got, say, Goddard in as a tight end, Watkins and Smith as your 2 receivers, and you've got Sanders and Scott as the 2 running backs. How do you treat that as a defense? Do you treat that as true 21 2 running back personnel and go base 4-3-3-4? Okay. Then Sirianni, they go 5 wide, and you've got at least 1, if not 2 linebackers covering each of those running backs. Or do you say, look, we're going to treat that like a sub package. We'll go nickel, we'll go dime. All right. They condense the formation and run at you a bit. Like, that's the stuff that you can do. And so whenever you can put that defensive coordinator into that bind, into that tough decision of, man, how do I treat this personnel package? Do I go dime? Do I go nickel? Do I go base? You're doing good work as an offensive coordinator. Just before you've even called a play, you've done something good because you've put them in a bind. And then look, that's why, you see the defense when they roll out, then you call plays against that. If they go base and go heavy, you spread them out a bit. Those guys can operate out of the slot. So I think, to Shane's point, they should, and I expect that they will use a lot of that 2 running back package with those 2, because I think that's a great way to attack defenses today. Especially, look, we know this is a game of cycles, and with so many teams on offense getting small, getting fast, getting quick, going light, we've seen defenses respond with a lot more, the phrase, nickel is the new base, or we see a lot of these hybrid backers now where you were a safety in college, now you're a linebacker in the NFL because we're going to get small and light. The response to that is get them into base situations, get those guys off the field, throw against linebackers, kind of go big in response. It's a game of cycles, and we're starting to see it turn a little bit the other way.
Awesome. We got to touch on this. I got the quarterback guru here. Shane asks, what do you think about the acquisition of Gardner Minshew? That kind of threw me off. I did not expect, although Nick Mullins was absolutely.
Yeah, Mullins was bad, and I got to take an L there. I mean, maybe it's the wizardry of Kyle Shanahan, but Shanahan made Mullins look good, and then
yes, sir.
You see what Mullins looks like now. And maybe there's some sort of somebody, when I quote tweeted it, the Schefter tweet saying QB Factory, somebody reached out like, man, Schefter just carried water, because Schefter had the tweet that, look, the Eagles love to accumulate talent at the game's most important position and try to develop it. And maybe there is a little bit of water carrying there when Schefter says something like that, but I do think it's true. I do think that this organization, that Howie Roseman looks at it as, it's the game's most important position. And maybe you're like 75%, you're not completely all in on Jalen Hurts, but you kind of have an expectation that, look, he's going to take the step forward. An opportunity to hedge against that with a guy in Gardner Minshew that at times looked like a very good starting quarterback in the NFL, even in a bad situation in Jacksonville, for just a conditional 6th-round pick. I think it's an extremely smart decision. And then always, my initial reaction more than anything else was, why did Jacksonville do this? Jacksonville's in a situation where you've got a rookie quarterback. You expect him to play and start and all that stuff. He's your starter, drafted him 1st overall. What if he gets hurt? What if he struggles? What if you need to sit him down just to protect himself because he's making mistakes? You're giving up a guy in Gardner for just a conditional 6th-round pick. That doesn't make sense. I think if nothing else, Gardner can be a very good backup quarterback in the NFL, especially even in Philadelphia once he learns the offense. But there's more potential there. There's a ceiling there that he hasn't quite hit yet. So I think this was a great acquisition for the Eagles. And I don't think this says anything about Jalen Hurts or how they really feel about them. I still think that, look, they're looking at Hurts as the guy. They have Flacco as the experienced veteran backup. It's an opportunity to acquire somebody at the game's most important position and see if he can develop them a bit.
All right, we got to move on to the big question. And this is like everything, because we didn't have enough sample size to really fully evaluate Jalen Hurts last year. You've seen teammates of Jalen Hurts. I mean, what are they supposed to say? Back him up, saying this guy is absolutely a franchise quarterback. I got to ask you, 0 to 10, 0 being no chance, 10 being 100% locked franchise quarterback. From everything we have seen in his young career, what are the chances that you think Jalen Hurts develops into a franchise quarterback?
I'd put it in that like 60 to 70% range. I mean, okay. I always use the phrase cautiously optimistic. It's like my one big hedge, but I think there's reason for optimism given what we saw in the Pittsburgh Steelers game. And I will say that, look, Jalen Hurts in his pre-draft process was somebody that, in my mind, the trend was in the right direction. I really loved his pre-draft process. I loved what he did at the Senior Bowl. I loved how he threw at the Combine. And I know Combine throwing sessions are what they are, but Hurts was one of those quarterbacks that needed to tighten up mechanically, and he put in the work, and he's done that. And then you see some of the decision-making, some of the stuff we've talked about. That's why I'm optimistic about, look, he's moving in the right direction. You have an offensive-minded head coach in Nick Sirianni that has been part of some quarterback development in the past, that is obviously a forward-thinking play caller. You've seen designs and route concepts that they've called that are quarterback-friendly, whether it's mesh, whether it's those flood concepts with that 3-level read, but you're still eyes on one side of the field or the other in the same general area, which helps the quarterback's decision-making. And so I think he's in a good situation to develop and be successful. I think he's got the tools to develop and be successful. And so I'm optimistic that development does happen this year, and he continues this growth towards being that franchise quarterback.
Piggybacking off of that, what constitutes a successful season for Jalen Hurts this season? Do you think? Go ahead.
Yeah, and this is always that tough question to answer because, I get asked about whether it's Jalen Hurts or Daniel Jones or other yard quarterbacks. Like, what do you need to do? What do they need to put on the board to be a successful quarterback? And I always say, look, don't just focus on the numbers. I mean, the numbers will help guide you there, touchdown and interception ratio, things like that. But the main question to answer is this. When week 17 rolls around and we're, into 2022, which, oh my goodness, but when we're into 2022, is Jalen Hurts a better quarterback then than he was at week 1? And that's the thing to focus on, because I say all the time, quarterback development, it is non-linear. It's not this nice little trend up, right? There'll be peaks and valleys and slopes. Like, there will be ups and downs along the way. But you want Jalen Hurts to be a much better quarterback at the end of the season. And what does that look like? It looks like the stuff we were talking about at the beginning of the show. Timing, rhythm, anticipation, placement, trap, right? Timing, rhythm, anticipation, placement. Is he making throws on time, in rhythm, anticipating breaks, anticipated throwing windows, putting the ball where it needs to be given the route, the concept, the coverage, the leverage, and all that stuff? If he's doing that on a down-to-down consistent basis, then he's better than he was when the year started. And so that's what you want to look for. You want to look for that acronym trap, right? If he's doing that consistently on a down-to-down basis by week 17 or even before that and it continues, that's what you want to see. That's a successful season from Jalen Hurts.
All right, let's go off of Jalen Hurts finally and go into, all the other players. Outside of Jalen Hurts, are there any other Eagles that have caught your attention this preseason?
I think the young wide receivers have looked good at times. We talked about Devonta Smith. We talked about Quez Watkins. Jalen Reagor has looked good at times as well. But I've been very impressed with it, particularly Devonta Smith. I think he's as advertised. That game against the New England Patriots, and I know the Patriots' secondary depth is an issue for them right now, but Smith was open all the time. Regardless of route, he was open on slants. He was open on crossers. He was open on shallows. He was open vertically down the field. And I was very impressed with what he put on film against the New England Patriots. And so, I think Eagles fans should be very excited about the potential of this offense. I know there's a lot that has to come together, but you look at these young receivers, you look at the tight ends, you look at this offensive line, which we talked about, you look at the running backs, which we've talked about. The potential is there. Now, it obviously all has to come together, but I think Eagles fans are right to be excited about what this offense could be.
Yeah, speaking as an Eagles fan, we haven't had a guy that can create separation off the line, make those breaks in his routes like Devontae Smith in a long time. We're talking like Terrell Owens type of shit. Like, it's been a long time. Let's go on to the next question. What are some of your biggest concerns in general for the Eagles this year before we get on to like predictions?
I mean, I think for many, like, obviously the Jalen Hurts development question, right? Does that happen or not? Like, that's going to be a critical factor. I think second and third level of the defense, linebackers, secondary, like, you know, are those the levels of the defense going to hold up this year? Are those levels of the defense going to hold up? You know, are you going to get consistent, you know, coverage in the secondary? You're going to be able to tie what is a pretty good defensive front with that secondary. And Bill Belichick always talks about how you need both pass rush and coverage. You have the pass rush, you know, the front is there. Are you going to be able to tie that secondary to that? So I think that's another thing to look at as well. But look, obviously the reason why I'm here is the main thing, the development of Jalen Hurts. Like, that's the thing that's the big question that has to get answered, because this is a quarterback driven league. We know this. You have to have a talented quarterback that is consistent, that can provide explosive plays in the pass game. If Hurts does that, this could be a successful year.
Marky Mark says, should the Eagles trade for a veteran wide receiver with their young wide receivers, you know, showing some signs of positive life? Again, it is preseason, but any quick thoughts on that, man?
I mean, it's an interesting idea, and I certainly wouldn't rule it out. I mean, you're seeing, you know, some potential big names potentially become available. Now, what's interesting is we're also cut down days. Like, we saw like a Brashard Perryman get cut. We saw Keyshawn Johnson, the Arizona Cardinals, get cut. Like, it might be worth sort of looking around the landscape, say in the next 24 hours, because we're approaching cut down day, which is, we're recording this Monday night. It's on Tuesday. You know, there might be a name that sort of gets cut, and the Eagles might be able to sort of move in and take advantage of that. And so, you know, when the dust settles after cutdown, then if they haven't made a move at the receiver position, then certainly explore that option, because it's a young, talented receiver group. But having a more veteran type presence, somebody that the younger guys can lean on, that might help their development while also helping Jalen Hurts, right? Because it's nice to have these two tight ends that are experienced that Hurts can go to and pick their brain about. But if you've got like a veteran wide receiver, like, I know he says he's not playing, but like a Larry Fitzgerald type who has been around the league for a while and, you know, knows what it's like to work himself open, knows what it's like when a quarterback is throwing with anticipation versus when a quarterback isn't throwing with anticipation. Having a receiver like that will also help Jalen Hurts. And so if the dust settles and they make a move for a veteran receiver, there's ways it could pay off beyond just adding a polished veteran receiver to the passing game. It's also a mind and a set of eyes and ears for the young quarterback as well.
Marky Mark, last question, says, I mean, what does that Jonathan Gannon defense look like? I mean, it's the same almost things applies to Nick Sirianni's offense. Like, you expect a lot of misdirections. You expect a lot of, you know, pre-snap movement. You expect a lot of stunts, guys moving on and off the ball for Jonathan Gannon's defensive line. We haven't seen any of that.
Yeah, I mean, they've been very vanilla. Like, some defense DPs down in Atlanta, like, he's been throwing mug looks. Other teams have been throwing mug looks and saying, like the Patriots did this past week, they did mug looks and all that stuff. Like, we're just going to run our stuff. We're not going to hide anything. You know, this has been a very sort of vanilla look, but I would expect, you know, the old cliched phrase, right? Every defensive coordinator gets hired for a new gig, comes in and says, we're going to be multiple on defense. Well, what is that? Like, can you really be a multiple defense? You know, do you have the talent to do that? Do you have the talent to show those mug looks and then drop off, show those mug looks and actually come play cover zero, cover one behind it? Do you trust your secondary to go zero blitz and know that they have to play man across the board? Like, that's sometimes a lot to ask. You can't always get away with that. But I do think that, look, you're going to see different looks. You're going to see an attempt to be multiple up front, an attempt to be multiple in the secondary. You're going to see spun safety looks. You're going to see some of that movement to try to confuse quarterbacks, because those are the things that you have to do. Like, if you just line up, or you just show your hand and say, look, we're spot dropping into cover 3, or we're showing you across the board, and look, it's cover 1 with a man-free safety. Quarterbacks will figure that stuff out. You've got to be able to do different things. You've got to get guys at different positions. You've got to find different ways to creatively rotate and spin your safeties at the snap. These are the things that they're going to have to try to do as we get into the regular season.
And like we said, Rodney McLeod was just activated. Other than McLeod, this is the first time, since I can remember in a long time, that the Eagles are heading into the regular season very healthy.
Yeah.
Health is actually on the Eagles' side. That being said, how many wins do you expect from the Eagles? Do they have a chance at all to win this division?
I think they have a chance. I think they have a chance. I know a lot of people, a lot of outlets have said it's a bottom 5 roster. I think, look, you look around the NFC East, there are question marks for every other team, right? The Giants and Daniel Jones. You know, the Washington football team, I think on paper is perhaps the best team in the division, but they've got a Ryan Fitzpatrick situation where you might get a 4-touchdown game from him. You might get a 4-interception game from him as well, you know? And so, you know, it's not like Washington's going to waltz back to a division title. And we all know, look, if you're listening to the show, you know we haven't had a repeat winner since the Eagles back in 2004, so it's been a while. Dallas has some questions. Their defense got a little bit better on paper, but is it better enough? I don't know. Is Dak healthy? We don't know. Like, all of these teams have questions. And so you look at the potential, like we've talked about on offense. This is a team that, look, you know, they could win 6 games and it could be like a 6-11 season. They could be an 11-6 team. Like, that's the nature of this NFC East. We just don't know. And it really all sort of comes back to Jalen Hurts. I think reasonably, this is probably like a, you know, doing the new math there, 7-10, 8-9, 9-8 kind of team. But who knows? You know, you look at, you know, you get that offensive line to stay healthy. These receivers take a step forward. Jalen Hurts takes a huge step forward. Suddenly you're talking about the upper range of those expectations and maybe even a little bit beyond that. And so it all comes down to the quarterback position in this league. If Hurts takes those steps forward, this could be a team that in this division could contend for the division. Yeah.
All right, Mark. Just want to say thank you for joining Party on Broad again. By the way, I'm already getting ready for the NFL draft next year because there's a lot.
You better have me back on before that, though, my friend.
Oh, no, 100%. But I'm telling you, I've already got my draft board going. A lot of excitement for the Eagles in the 2022 NFL draft. Mark, where can we find you, man? What do you got going on?
Well, my friend, thanks as always for having me. You can find me on the Bird app, on the Stadium app, at Mark Schofield, USA Today's Touchdown Wire, Big Blue View, Bleeding Green Nation, where I co-host the QB Factory Reboot with Rachel Prevet, who is fantastic and awesome. Also, going to do some work for Blogging the Boys as well. I'm going to do some Dak Prescott. I'm basically covering every NFC team now at this point, Rocky. It's incredible. But on Twitter, at Mark Schofield, buddy, always a blast.
Thank you. Go follow Mark on Twitter at Mark Schofield. Check out his amazing breakdown channel on YouTube. So good. I'm hoping for some amazing Jalen Hurts breakdowns this season, man.
You know they're coming, buddy. You know they're coming.
I can't wait, man. They're juicy, man. I'm thirsty for sure. For Mark, for myself, thank you everybody for watching. Oh, smash that like button. Always hit subscribe. Stay awesome, everybody.
Sixers win it! Wow! Oh, man, Embiid just posterized Russell Westbrook.
You love the